exciting to hear about how these governors are working to make the natural gas system and its infrastructure less leaky, more efficient. That's certainly good news because we know methane is a super polluter when it comes to the climate crisis. And so I guess the goal is to try to make sure that all of that natural gas doesn't just leak into the atmosphere as a super polluter, that we keep it in pipes and get it to the point where we can just burn it and then just have CO2 pollution, which is still not good. And so I want to just kind of reset a little bit of the context for this conversation, because this is a climate crisis we're talking about, and we have a huge methane problem. Methane emissions are the second largest contributor to human-caused climate change, second to carbon dioxide, and we are setting record after record when it comes to methane emissions. In fact, we just set the record second year in a row for the largest methane measurements since we began measuring methane some 40 years ago. And to make matters worse, when we talk about methane emissions, we're also talking about other toxic pollutants that go along with it. These are pollutants that cause debilitating health problems for millions of people who live near oil and gas operations, which of course are the largest source of methane emissions. But I do want to thank Governor Lujan Grisham for leadership in New Mexico, because it is no easy thing to tackle the oil and gas industry, or to work with them in your case, as you described. And we know that strong methane standards are a necessary tool among the other steps we need to take to confront the climate crisis and to advance environmental justice, because we need to always be thinking about those other pollutants and those other impacts. You know, one of the problems with methane is we don't have a very good sense for how much methane pollution there even is. We do know that it's underreported. We do know that every time we use new technology to look for methane, we find more of it than we thought that we had. And part of that, certainly underreporting, but also inadequate rules, underfunded government agencies and their staff to enforce rules. And all of this, for the most part, has been just fine with the industry. So I'm always glad to hear where progress is being made. But it's important to note that the real solution to this climate crisis is to dramatically reduce fossil fuel extraction and really begin that thing we talk a lot about, that transition to clean energy, and a just transition as we do it. That's the imperative of this climate crisis. It's the obvious takeaway from this terrible war that Russia is waging in Ukraine, and frankly from just about every other war that we have seen in recent decades. A few specifics: the International Energy Agency and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change tell us that we have to stop permitting new oil and gas production entirely if we're serious about tackling this crisis. The IPCC's new mitigation report and study in the journal Environmental Research Letters includes significant findings on methane that make it very clear that continuing to operate our current fossil fuel infrastructure drives us past any point of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we just need to be very clear-eyed about that. We've got to start phasing it out, and we have to mean what we say when we talk about this transition.